Thank you all for being here. How many of you have seen me present before? You guys are lucky for punishment. How many of you this is the first time? And how many of you too damn tired to raise your hands? So those of you who have been here before, why are you coming back? What keeps you coming back to this topic? Anybody?
For you.
Great introductions.
News we can use.
News you can use. That'll work. Okay. Honest disclosure, we're going to run over. On the last session of the day, at 4:15 you want to leave, that's perfectly fine. But there's a lot of data here, and there's always a fun conversation that happens when the microphone goes off. And afterwards, as my annual tradition, we find a local bar and we have great conversations off the record. You're all invited. So we may have to find a bigger one. First things first. As I look at the room, one thing I notice we all have in common. We all grew up in the age of privacy. You know, we all learned at some points, depending on how old you are, loose lips sink ships, don't say anything you wouldn't want said repeated in public, and Billy, keep your mouth shut. Our kids, our grandkids, have no such training. What are they being trained in? People what you had for breakfast. Like what the girl's wearing in school. Oh yes, and please, pull out your cell phone cameras, because every moment in life needs to be shot through a tiny little screen so you can post it online. How many of you have gone to concerts and seen the idiots glued to their cell phone shooting a concert they paid $80 to see? I actually admire musicians who go, turn the damn things off or I'm going off stage. I admire the artistic integrity that goes, watch the performance, buy the recording later. Now for those of you who think about social media and privacy and are concerned about what to teach your kids, your grandkids, your neighbors, your Girl Scouts, your Boy Scouts, your church kids, or the young people in your life, you're welcome to record this presentation, or you can go to that link and download that. It's a video put up on YouTube. It's aimed at the 12 to 25-year-olds in your life. What should they do? What their peers have done that have cost their peers jobs, academic expulsion, jail time. And if you're traveling abroad, if your kids are going to study abroad this summer or next fall, there's some things you as a parent or a caregiver might want to know and arm yourself with. Because the fundamental precept of every law in the world, every legal organization, is ignorance is not a defense. And if you choose to be ignorant about social media and cloud computing and digital privacy, or your kids or people in your life choose to be ignorant, and then they get nailed for it, you can't say, well, I didn't know, no one told me. You have to educate yourself. You know, in the U.S., we have the principle of the Miranda Rights. When the cops arrest you, we've got a couple of cops here. Please don't raise your hands. You know, when they arrest you, they have to tell you everything you say can be held against you. Let them keep your mouth shut. On the internet, we have no such protection. Nothing on the internet ever says anything you post today will be public for the rest of your life. Gmail has never said anything you put online will be accessible to third parties forever. Facebook never says, yes, like that update, thank you very much, you've just deleted First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment rights for life. Remember Al Pacino? Vanity, it's my favorite sin. Why does social media exist? To feed into our vanity. Why does Facebook exist? Nature abhors a vacuum. Our vanity really abhors a vacuum. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, blogs, websites. Do they actually do any real business? Yes, for the arms dealers. Seagate's are running all the way to the bank selling more storage. EMC's having great profits. Cisco's making a fortune selling routers. The bandwidth companies are making billions on bandwidth. When was the last time you saw a full, proper ROI on social media from anybody who was not in the marketing industry? Tell me if you have a marketer who gives you proper ROI, I want to hire them. All my marketing folks, their ROI is absolutely negative. But what happens in real life? Facebook says friend your neighbors. Well, a burglar ring in Nashville, New Hampshire did exactly that. They friended all their neighbors, and when they noticed somebody posted a brand new TV, a brand new car, brand new jewelry, a diamond ring, and decided to say, we're on vacation in Hawaii, Albany, any place not in Nashville, like good neighbors, they went over and helped themselves. Extra pair of hands. Separately, Adam Savage, Mythbusters, he's better with privacy now. He really is. For the 100th episode, Toyota gave him a brand new truck, a Tundra, to celebrate 100 episodes of Mythbusters. He took a photo, put it up on Flickr. Remember Flickr? Is this still alive now? Or did it get killed by Instagram? Anyway, within 5 minutes of the photo being on Flickr, his fans knew exactly where he lived. Why? Because every smartphone you've had in the last decade, most digital cameras have GPS enabled, geotagging is automatically enabled, and stripping geodata is a pain. You get Photoshop, you get Paint, go to Instagram. They let you add filters, add colors, make him look better, give him more hair. Do they ever have a button that says strip all geodata? No. Why not? It's not that difficult to do, but it's not in their interest to take away metadata about your data. What are all these marketers, what are these companies making their money off of? Your content and the data about your content that they can monetize and sell to advertisers. This is one of my favorite stories. How many of you went to college? How many of you were drinking in college before you were at the legal age? I was in a funny generation. The year before I went to college, legal age was 18. The year I went, it was 21. So of course, I did not drink till I was 21. And if you believe that, there's a fridge I'd love to sell you. And a consulting contract to go with it. So, in this particular case, this really nice young kid saw a Facebook posting from a pretty young girl inviting to a kegger. Now, if you're a man and in college, and a pretty girl says, come over for a party, what's your default answer? Yes, I'm studying for calculus. Yeah. And if you're females, and a nice looking guy goes, I'm having a party with a bunch of your friends. Please come as my guest. What do you say? If you're in college and somebody's offering you free food and free beer, what's your default answer? And if you don't believe me, ask your kids. What's your default answer? We'll do anything for free food and free beer. Well, in this particular case, the campus cops were in a sting operation. There was no pretty girl. She was undercover cop. You showed up at the party, $227. Easy way to make money. I'm not entirely sure what societal impact that has. How are we protecting society from a bunch of college freshmen and sophomores drinking beer on campus? In the overall scheme of things, I think we have larger crimes to worry about than a bunch of 20-year-old lacrosse students getting drunk. But I could be wrong. Did I use this before? And what's the biggest problem in social media? They all have privacy settings, right? Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg says, we value your privacy. Eric Schmidt says, we value your privacy. Everybody says, we value your privacy. But do they really? You could believe the terms of service. You could believe what the manufacturer says. Personally, I prefer to believe what the courts and the lawyers tell me. Because at the end of the day, the guy who gates, guns, and badges tend to be more right than wrong most of the time. So, in the UK, a young man worked for Apple stores, went on Facebook and said some nasty things about his manager. Manager's a jerk, he's unprintable words, he's an a-hole, all the things and of course, none of the things you've ever said about your boss. Your boss are angels, right? They're all perfect. So he said things about his boss. One of his Facebook buddies, Facebook friends, printed out the comments, gave it to the manager. I got fired. He sued into the EU human rights. He said, they violated my privacy, invaded my privacy. I want my job. I counter institution. And a UK tribunal, more than one judge ruled, anything on social media is not private. Legally, it ain't private. How many of you knew that? That those privacy settings are a lie. The UK is not alone. Same thing in Australia. In the US, we have a law that says if your minors are involved, media can't publish their names or photos unless they have approval from the parents or the parties involved. Australia has the same set of rules, or similar rules. And a television show went to his Facebook page, grabbed some photos, ran a news story with it. Parents sued for violation of privacy. And the Australian media regulator ruled, sorry, it's on Facebook, it's public domain. Same thing happened in this country. About 3 years ago, a very wealthy couple in Nassau County, Long Island, they were accused of holding their maid hostage, holding her as a slave. And the parents were found guilty and they went to jail. They lived in a private gated community. They had no real credit cards, no credit profile. No real media presence. What did New York Post do? They friended one of the girl's friends. They basically friended the daughters over Facebook. And the front page story in the New York Post, Rupert Murdoch's newspaper, was the inside of the mansion of 16 birthday parties. So, one hand, the law says the media can't publish anything about minors involved in a crime as a victim or a perpetrator. On the other hand, if it's online, and they've made it public, the prince has made it public, it's public domain data now. This is why you want to be careful, and you want to teach yourself and your kids and your grandkids about what to post and what not to post. I saw some posters out there from the New York State CyberSecurity competition. Those kids have more brains than most adults. You might want to grab those posters. Lots of families take pictures. And you know, we now have kids who are basically being recorded, the Truman Show from the day they're born. Well, you might think you're recording baby photos to share with the family. And yeah, we all love cute babies. They're all cute. They look like Churchill with hair. But you know, they're a tradable commodity. In more and more jurisdictions, you're seeing family photos and fairly innocuous stuff being spliced and diced and put together with the video effects. It's porn. And once kids become accidental porn stars, they'll put data online that could make them accidental porn stars. Because what somebody does with their kids' photos in Thailand, or India, or Hong Kong, nobody in this country can help you. And once it's out, it's out. You know, and a side note, when Flickr went big, and in Flickr terms services, all the photos are Flickr's property, a marketing company, I think in Poland or Lithuania, took a picture of a very happy family and made billboards and supermarket ads featuring this family. You know, they used a stock photo. How much do we know about this? The family that was the photographs was actually vacationing, and it was like, what am I doing in that shop storefront? Now, here's a fun one for you. I've seen a lot of police academies who will put up Facebook postings of cops as they graduate the academy. Is that public domain data? Is that the right thing to do? Yes, we do. We take photos, we put them online in the news, we put them in the newspapers, the graduating class. But what happens when these cops go undercover? In this particular case, a woman is arrested for drug dealing, or something similar, and at her hearing, she took a photo of the cop who was testifying against her and put it up on Facebook. You know, on the one hand, I agree that she should be sanctioned for it. You really shouldn't have putting undercover cops' lives at stake. On the flip side, the next story in the same newspaper was police departments setting up Facebook accounts for the departments. Somehow, I don't think I need to see my cops on Facebook. Especially not going, hi, my name is Adam, I'm your new cop. Because you know what, someday they might go undercover. Some days they might need to be in cases where that needs to be protected. But if the department already outed them, it's kind of hard to protect them. This is one place where the right hand and left hand aren't thinking things clearly through. Other than beer and food, what's the third thing every college kid always needs? No, it's not such. Money. And there's a lovely bank in Hong Kong, a very small division of a large bank called Lendo, who came up with a very innovative new product. It was about a year and a half ago. You get an account with Lendo, you get a loan through them. As part of your sign-up service, you give them your Facebook, your Weibo, all your social media accounts. Give them your username and your password. Why? So that as you do good, you pay a loan on time, you get bonuses, they'll brag, they'll tweet about it, they'll post about it. And if your friends sign up through your social media, you know, they'll click on your tweet about how great your bank is, they like our update about your bank, they click on a loan, they get a better rate, you get a free toaster. And you get to enter a competition to win a concert with Jay-Z and Beyonce or somebody else. Every year they're putting out a new celebrity pushing this product. Here's what they don't tell you publicly, but it's in your terms of service. Page 28, chapter 5, in subparagraph C. If you're late on your payments, you're a deadbeat, or your friends are deadbeats, they'll use your own social media accounts and broadcast that. How many of you would feel comfortable vouching for your friends and their ability to pay debts? What about your family members? I can promise you that a bunch of family members of mine, you don't loan money. We give them, we don't loan. Facebook is the social network. And they're their biggest fans of matrimonial attorneys. Good news is people are not enforcing any more or any less than they used to. Bad news is the last 5 years, and everything the data seems about the same. About a third of the divorces in the UK and about a quarter in the US all cite Facebook as a contributing factor. This is a trend I see happening more and more. In this particular case, Bobby Duncan, young lady, went to college. She joined the queer course, the gay and lesbian course on campus. And the course director put a photo of all of them performing on Facebook. Her dad found out she was lesbian before she told him. In this particular case, I believe her dad is somewhere. How many of your kids go join societies in college knowing that their photos might go online disclosing data about them that they don't want to go public with? This is happening more and more in every country that I've studied. Remember the Patriot Act passed after 9/11 to prevent terrorism? And it gave the FBI expanded powers, dangerously expanded powers. And the rubric every time you hear about Patriot Act is being used to protect us from terrorism. Well, a case about a year ago, the FBI made big news about how they had foiled a terrorist plot on Facebook. It was on all the news shows. Yeah, here's the punchline. Their evidence was a bunch of Facebook postings by a bunch of incompetent morons. If the entire piece of the investigation are rantings on Facebook, I question the value of my tax dollars at work. I really question the intelligence of the unit working that investigation. Another trend we're seeing, phishing is cool, phishing is great. In this particular case, at the last election cycle, the most expensive election cycle in American history, a very, very small pack out of text from one of the Tea Party chairman, like, out of town so small he could fit in this room, I think. He set up websites for all the major Republican candidates. He copied or stole everything off the websites. Unless you read the fine print at the bottom, which said all the donations go to his PAC, you would assume you were sending money to these national or statewide candidates. In this particular case, and I love the story, G.W. Bush, a speechwriter, donated $250 he thought to Alan West. And after he clicked OK, he went, oh. Because then he wrote the fine print. He thought he was giving to Alan West. It actually went to some guy in the middle of Texas. He couldn't find it on Google Maps. Remember John McAfee? The man who gave us a snake-all name known as antivirus software? He really ought to be pilloried for signature-based attacks, which never actually did anything except big semantic Richard. And now Intel Richard. Well, he spent how many years on the run? He had a damn good career, successfully evading law enforcement, investigators, and attorneys. He burned more opposing legal counsel time than most governments. He was awesome. How did he get captured? He gave Vice Magazine exclusive rights to his life story. They published a photo of him. His tweet and blog said he's over here in Guatemala, and when he was over here. How did he get captured? How many of you have heard this before? Vice Magazine printed this photo. Within 3 minutes, somebody pulled the geodata out and said, oh, wait a minute, that's where he is. Now, I don't know whether Vice Magazine made an obvious human error of not stripping metadata, or whether they intentionally left the metadata in, geodata in, knowing it'd be a bigger story if they were on hand for his arrest. Call me cynical. Other people have. You know, every corporation, every government spends millions and billions on security. How many of you work in departments where you sit through the stupid security training videos or training every quarter or every year? How many of you work in departments who are beneficiaries of the security compliance and training budgets? Well, what do you think about your employees' kids? Dell Corporation spends about $3 million a year for the protection of Michael Dell and family. In a single week, 2 of his kids completely destroyed the entire security budget. The daughter put up on Instagram where she's going to be that night for her high school reunion or some party she's going to. And the same day, her brother put out a photo of his breakfast spread that he was, this $50,000 breakfast he's dining at before they get the family jet to go on vacation in Hawaii. 2 kids, 1 family, 24 hours. How many of you have this in the back of your mind when training your users? How many have thought about this before? Hey, I'm training the CEO, I'm training my captain, I'm training my manager, I'm training my secretary. What about their kids and their grandkids? You told your employees, keep your mouth shut, don't tell people what we're doing. Do their kids know not to brag about where you're traveling to, or your clients are?
You actually have no control over it.
We have no control, but control is always an illusion. If you train them, if you have a proper conversation about it, you might be able to defend against it. We kept a lot of secrets by training a whole generation who slips and ships. There are plenty of men and women who were born, served, and died with their families never even knowing what they did for a living. We have given up the culture of privacy, the culture of secrecy, or let me blather like an idiot online. How many of you knew what your parents made as an income? How many of you had no idea how much money your parents made? How many of you had no idea how many family members you actually had who were 3rd, 4th generation cousins of yours? How many of you don't know how far back your family tree goes? Most Americans. That's a lot of data that was never captured. On the other hand, how many of you right now know or can tell in a matter of minutes what your coworker had for breakfast? In this particular case, this is my personal favorite story out of this whole segment. A couple of months ago, Zuckerberg's sister tweeted a photo. She was supposed to direct the message it, but she publicly accidentally tweeted it. One of the reports found the Zuckerberg family, she wondered why they get followed by the media, caught the photo, published it. And Randy Zuckerberg, Mark's sister, had this to say. She complained about this photo being published. It's not about privacy settings, it's about human decency. Hot kettle? Maybe you should take a little brother and kick his ass a few times, for violating human decency with his lack of privacy settings in the first place. But that's my favorite line. It's not about privacy settings, it's about human decency. Maybe that's Facebook's new security posture. So if we looked at users, because what's the common finish in computer training? It's always the user's fault, isn't it? You clicked on that link, you must have gone somewhere. Don't we always blame the users? Or does users always get blamed first? Yeah, we do. Well, now go to the second side of this dice. Techno movers. It's not always the user's fault. The vendors make it too damn easy. In legal circles, there's the concept of attractive nuisance. If you have a swimming pool in your backyard without a proper fence and everything else, and your neighbor's kids come over and they drown in it, you are liable. If you've got a swing set in your yard, and you don't have signs and you don't keep your neighbor's kids out, they come and they break their neck on your swing set of your trampoline, you are legally liable. We don't have the concept of attractive nuisance online, do we? These are all quotes from my favorite anti-privacy nerd. You'll know who is in a minute. Eric Schmidt was quoted as saying in an interview, this is a man who works for the biggest data mining company on the planet, and actually said in an interview, Street view cars, they only drive once through your neighborhood. You can always move, can't you? So apparently the solution to having your privacy out of a street view is not to ban street view, but to move. Because moving is so easy, isn't it? Don't we just love moving on a regular basis? So Facebook, in the search for their never-ending quest for proper market valuation, profits, revenue and income, they created a whole new feature called couple pages. How many of you know about this? A couple things you should know. If you have a Facebook account, and so does your partner, maybe your wife or your husband, your ex, anybody you are socially linked with, in the real world, since it's not the Facebook media sense, They'll sit there and automatically data mine it for you. You don't have to pick family album anymore. You're on there, your husband or your wife is on there, they'll create your family photo album for you. Now imagine if you have a mistress or a boyfriend on the side, your spouse that didn't know about. How comfortable is that? Remember TiVo, when TiVo first came out? And it would try to predict what you liked? Remember the first time people watched Will and Grace? And all of a sudden you got stuck in the TiVo, must be gay feed? And all of a sudden you got a lot of recommendations for all the other gay rom-coms out there, all 3 of them. Imagine what's going to happen the first time, or the first millionth time, Facebook gets an automatic couple page for someone you're not actually sleeping with. Try proving that in court. So yes, Facebook. They give you, they encourage you to put your cell phone number in, don't they? You got Facebook Mobile, you got the Facebook phone, you get an account. 2-factor validation, put your cell phone number in. A researcher found that he could actually get 90% of people's cell phones because Facebook had no security on the cell phone numbers. How many people have had a cell phone for over a year? How many of you kept the same number for a year? 5 years? 10 years? 15 years? Would you argue or would you agree that your email, your phone number is practically an identity for you? How many of you changed jobs, changed careers, kept your cell phone number? Remember Girls Around Me? There's a cute little app that came out, had one of these wonderful media curves. Startup, stealth mode, exploded, died. What was their problem? They took Facebook status updates, forced location data, took your gender from Facebook, married it all together, and gave you a little app. So if you're walking down the block, you could go, hey, where are the hot single girls around me? And there was a big media backlash. Within 2 weeks, the company died. You know what didn't die? The data, the concept. So, girls around me, the app died. Gays around me, boys around me, those lived. More importantly, both the Obama and, what's his name? The Mormon? I blanked his name out of my head. Romney, thank you. Both their campaigns built similar technology so they could help their volunteers find Democrats around me and Republicans around me. So girls around me died. Voters around me still lives. So if your annoying friends are telling you who to vote for the last election, blame these characters. This app is not dead. In fact, somebody told me they have it on their phone. How many of you know about SceneTap? This is a creepy little thing. So they have encouraged bars to put up cameras at the door and on top of the bar. The pitch to the bar owner is, we protect you from theft from your employees. More importantly, we get you more drinkers. We get you more patrons. Why? Pull up the app or go to the website. Type in the zip code, or if you're on your phone, it'll tell you. At any bar they've seen tap enabled. How many people are there? What's the male to female ratio? What's the demographic of the drinkers? Gone are the days of walking to a nice little bar, smoking a little bar, and have a private conversation. Now, why is this a problem? Well, governments and corporations are stupid things for the right reasons. India has a problem, like most countries. They have, most emerging economies, I should say. They have a large population that is still underserved. They're poor, and they have a large welfare payments problem. In the U.S., we have a large welfare payments problem. Every year you read stories about Medicare fraud, Medicaid frauds, food stamp fraud. Well, India wants to cut that nip out in the bud. There's a large ID theft and fraud problem in India, like most countries. So they built this amazing biometric database. They project to have 1.2 billion people in it in the next 3 years. Currently, this is the second largest database. It is 128 times bigger than the Homeland Security database. To give you scale. The entire country of India is smaller physically than the state of Texas. They have 4 times their population, and their data set is 128 times bigger than ours right now. And when asked, why they're building it, they had all the great reasons. We want to get more people to have higher incomes, give them, not let their welfare payments get stolen by the politicians and the thieves in the food chain. And they asked, what about security? And the director of the project literally said, why should these people worry about security? They live 12 people to a room. I agree. If you're starving, if you're living on less than $1 a day, security and privacy are the least of your concerns. Your first are your Maslowian needs: food, shelter, and comfort. On the other hand, look at it from a societal perspective. Now, every Indian who is in this system has for the rest of their lives their non-modifiable identifiers in a government-built database built by the lowest bidder, with security not even thought of, not even bolted on. Because they're not looking at it from a security, we're looking at it from how do we feed our people problem. I expect this database to make our social security number problem look like a joke real soon now. United Arab Emirates, not exactly an open democratic country, you might have heard. Not in a small part of the world where civil rights are an oxymoron. They actually applied to the World Record Academy to get recognized as building the world's largest biometrics database. Now, I don't know about you, but governments competing to be declared the poster child for privacy violations is not my favorite way of spending public funds. Oscar Benavides, the former Peruvian president, has a wonderful quote. For my friends, anything. For my enemies, the law. How many of you believe that to be a truism? Just remember, we live in a country where a white guy can claim he smoked dope but not inhale, becomes president. Another white guy claims, I smoked cocaine, but I'm clean now, becomes president. A non-white guy who went to Harvard admits to smoking pot, becomes president. But if any one of them had been under 18 in New York City, walking down the street not smoking pot, they'd probably be Rikers Island right now. For the elites, anything. For the rest of us, it's the law. Why do I say this? Electronic Communications Privacy Act of 1986. How many of you know about this particular wonderful law? It is 26 years old. It's old enough to pay off a mortgage on its house. Soon. I'll give you the punchline. The law literally says, any email you store online from a third-party provider, if it's unopened and unread, it has 6 months of privacy protections from government. On day 181, it's considered abandoned property. They do not need a search warrant. Just a subpoena will do, right, gentlemen? Anything in an online database has 0 days of privacy from anybody. What's Facebook? Database. Twitter? Database. Salesforce? Database. Gmail, you could argue, is a database. Because they actually say in terms of service, we mine your emails, context-sensitive advertising. I actually can't find any email system that cannot be classified as a database. Because they all do data mining. Exchange is data mining. I only exchange service data mining. So, it's not been tested in court yet, but in theory, all email could have 0 rights to privacy. So, remember David Petraeus, head of the CIA, the most powerful intelligence agency in human history, or at least one of the biggest budget? If David Petraeus, who ran an army bigger than any empire in history, and ran it very well, and then ran the CIA, if he can't protect himself from ECP overreach by the FBI, what makes you think you can? I know I can. This is my real problem with the ECPA. No one is immune from an angry FBI agent who's bald and goes shirtless on Facebook, who decides to take down the head of the CIA just because he had a hot shot girl in Miami. Petraeus lost his job. The FBI agent, I believe, is still gainfully employed by our tax dollars. Now, Patriot Act, remember the Patriot Act? Lovely acronym. Makes you a great American to vote for it. It has a lot of provisions most people didn't read. One of them is that it lets the U.S. government get data from around the world. If your data is held by an American provider, they can rendition it. And the CIA has a small habit of taking people in private airplanes, putting a black bag over their head, taking them to foreign countries. It's called rendition. Welcome to digital rendition. Don't take my word for it. The Irish government, in 2010, 3 years ago, and several other European governments have the same exact thing in public. They have forbidden their government departments from using Amazon, Rackspace, Google, Facebook, American providers, precisely because any data in there, especially on their citizenry, A, violates the EU Charter of Human Rights, the EU Privacy Acts, and allows the data to be sent or renditioned back to the United States with no control over what happens to it once the US government gets their hands on it. I'm not exactly a paranoid freak, but remember the Kim.com case. Who got hurt in the Kim.com case? So yeah, he set up a website where people are uploading movies and film. I don't think anybody died because somebody downloaded Game of Thrones. I don't think it's really that important. But to get one guy, at the behest of media lobby, the FBI actually worked with the New Zealand government, broke their own laws with the New Zealand spy agencies to steal the assets of a New Zealand citizen. How bad is it? Just yesterday, a judge ruled that the New Zealand cops not only have to give back all his data, but they have to serve him illegally and they have to get it back from the FBI at their own dime. And why is the FBI doing this? Why is a U.S. domestic agency, whose charter says, we protect Americans on American soil? Why are they going out and investigating media theft in New Zealand? This is not a terrorism case. This is not an imminent threat, except maybe somebody's wrong. But this is where the Patriot Act and judicial illegal overreach comes back and bites us. Here's my fun quote. Ron Yden is a sitting senator from Oregon. He's on the Senate Foreign Intelligence Committee. He knows lots of data he can't talk about in public ever. Here's what he had to say about the Patriot Act. He said there are two versions of it. One that's written and published that you can download off the internet, and the second is the top secret classified definition of it as exercised by the executive department. We have the reinvention of the Star Chambers. If you read your history, British monarchs were sovereign. They were immune from all rules until the Magna Carta. Why do we have Magna Carta? Because enough wealthy landowners rebelled against the king and took away his divine right. The French went through the same thing. The French kings were no longer divine. The American executive, no matter who's in office, whichever party, is going down the same road of declaring the American executive, the presidency, effectively divine right. They're demanding rights that we fought we had a revolution against. I'm not saying law enforcement should not have warrants and subpoenas. They should have all the legal tools. I object to classified secret tools that you can't even discuss in court. The only difference between surveillance and investigation is a warrant. You have a warrant, properly written one, it's an investigation. If you don't have one, it's surveillance. Remember the communists? Remember the East Germans? Remember all the posters about how nasty the Reds were? Their citizens have no privacy, they have no human rights, they have no dignity. When the hell did we become the United States of Russia? That's what I want to know. Now, how does technology work around the world? Well, the Saudis have a wonderful culture. If you're a man, you have everything. If you're a woman, you have less rights than a camel. I'm not kidding. Under Saudi law and Saudi culture, the adult male of your house, who could be your husband, your father-in-law, your brother, your son, is your legal guardian. And whenever Saudi women leave the country, their legal male guardian gets notified by the Saudi government. They get a text message, hey, your wife just left the country. Your wife is entering the airport. How many would love to live in a country like that? Oh, I'm sorry, you have Foursquare and Facebook, don't you? And you have your airline check-in app? Don't they say the same exact thing? So welcome to the United States of Saudi Arabia. Now, this happened right at the protest movements. To get after one cell phone number, the cops have jumped through a lot of hoops. They get warrants, have to do all the paperwork no one likes to do. To get the cell phone numbers of 1,000 or 1,000,000, it's actually a lot easier. Some of the Occupy Wall Street movements came around. What do the cops do? They just went to cell phone towers and said, give me all the traffic for every cell phone in this neighborhoods, in these towers. I have a problem with that. A, we have data what the cops do with this data. There's no written standard for how long they can keep it, when are they going to destroy it, and what happens to the rest of us who are not actually guilty of any crimes. Under this working theory, we're all guilty until proven innocent. I did believe read something in the Constitution about us actually living in a country where we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but apparently technology has changed that. It used to be you paid a vendor, you could trust them to do something with your data. These days you pay a vendor to rat on you. After London riots, RIB voluntarily, without being asked, took the entire BBM message logs for the affected zip codes in London, gave them to the police, no questions asked. So a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, there's a lot of rumors going around about what cell phone companies are doing with our data. And no one had any hard evidence on what was being done. We all kind of suspected Verizon, Sprint, AT&T, whatever, were giving data to the government and law enforcement on and on. So, Ed Markey and a couple of representatives subpoenaed the phone companies and said, okay guys, tell us what you're giving. Tell us what you're doing. Not every cell phone company fulfilled the request, but the ones that admitted that in a single 12-month period, or 13-month period, the phone companies dumped or gave law enforcement 1.3 million cell phone surveillance requests. GPS location on cell phones. 1.3 million. U.S. population 350 million people. You're talking about 1/3 of the percent of America. GPS location given to cops. Without a warrant. We have laws, Australians have laws. They got caught doing illegal surveillance in the absence of an illegal standing. You could say dumb Australians, except the Germans have done it, the Brits have done it, the Americans have done it. Every government is breaking laws right now globally to spy on their own citizens. This is my favorite one. May 8, 2013. Last week, the Department of Justice actually said, Eric Holder, the chief law enforcement officer in the United States, actually says that they can acquire email and Facebook chats without a warrant from anybody. One quirk of the law, if law enforcement wants to get 6 seconds of real-time email capture, paperwork is about this high. Then when you get 6 years of email, paperwork is, how many pages is a subpoena? 3 pages? 5 pages? This little? So it's cheaper to get 6 years of all email versus 6 seconds of live traffic. Call me crazy, but you think we might want to readjust our laws just a little bit? Now, national security letters, they used to exist before the Patriot Act. Post-Patriot Act, they just became a lot more convenient for the FBI to use. Because they took away some of the restrictions that they had on who could deliver them. They actually made them, click forward, insert name, print, thank you. And ACLU did a study about 2 years ago where they found that even though the national security letter provisions were put in to prevent terrorism, in 99% of the cases DOJ admitted to using them. They were being used for drug enforcement. I'm sorry, but going after a guy selling marijuana on the street is not exactly an existential threat to the stability of this country. But that's where the bulk of the NSLs are going. And just today, or yesterday, a judge ordered Google to comply with NSLs. Even though a different court ruled last week that the gag clause in national security letters actually violates the First Amendment. So even though one court has ruled NSL's gag clause is non-constitutional, a separate court has ruled comply with it anyway. I expect the next year or two, this is going to go head-to-head in the Supreme Court. We need some clarity on whether gag orders actually belong in the American Republic. And along with that, the New York City prosecutor had a very, FBI officer had a very clever tactic. Because they're being sued in this court for a national security letter being unconstitutional. They filed themselves in this particular court, and they asked the judge to rule that the vendor providers have to comply right now. They're actually strong-arming providers who are fighting NSLs. Google is the most publicly known because they've gone public with that they're fighting NSLs. A bunch of others are doing it. They're not as ballsy about making the name public. But every time you try to fight national security letters, the DOJ is hitting the providers up with significantly more legal attacks. It's an end run around the law. And yes, a number of people have said, in and out of government, that the FBI is actively abusing national security letters. So, what's the punchline? Where are we going? William Gibson said this in 1983 in Neuromancer. The future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed. That means what's going to happen 5 to 20 years from now is already happening in some parts of the world. Where is it happening? First, let's go back in time. Quick review of Social Security numbers. 1934, 1935, we had a debate in Congress. The right didn't want a very strong national ID number because it violates the Bible and it's mark of the beast. The left didn't want a strong national ID card because they would disenfranchise the minority, the poor, the immigrants. Stop me if you've heard this argument before. So in 1936, they have a happy compromise. Okay, we'll have this number, Social Security number, only used by the IRS for collecting income taxes. That's actual official law. In 1938, a Long Island-based wallet manufacturer, the vice president of marketing went to secretary, who had one of the earliest SSN cards, took her card, reduced it in half, changed the color from blue to red, marked sample on it, and shoved it in every one of the wallets to show people they have this new patent pending technology. There's plastic windows in the wallets. Show people how to use them. So that was the first case of ID theft of Social Security numbers. How do we know this? In 1939, 40,000 people filed their taxes using their SSN because they thought they had been given the SSN by the wallet manufacturer. You might go, gee, those guys are dumb in the 40s. 40 years later, 1977, 12 people had still filed their taxes with this SSN number. And you're laughing, it is funny. But here's a punchline. How many of you know that to this day, only the IRS is allowed to use SSN numbers for any identifiers? Your banks are not supposed to use them. Your insurance companies, your credit card companies, your mortgage companies, your schools, your universities, they're all violating federal law. Try getting a loan or a job without an SSN number. They have become a de facto ID number. What's the problem with it? Let's compare your Social Security number with the credit card number. You have your credit card. You lose it. You call your bank. I lost my credit card. How fast do they give you? Do they cancel the number? In about a minute. How fast you get your card back? You get a new card in a couple of days. I'm a merchant. You give me a credit card. How fast can I tell if it's yours, if it's active or not? Whether you have enough money in the account? 30 seconds or less. Usually less. So I can validate it's yours. You can repudiate it. I lost it. Give me a new one. I can actually verify identity and your bank balance, or at least your fund limit, by running a charge. Social Security numbers. How many of you know your Social Security number? How many of you can tell me absolutely no one else in the country has your number? How many of you can check somebody else's SSN number and know you're checking with the right person? You can't. For decades, SSN numbers were so small that we used the pool. So we actually have people, 2 different people, one dead, one living, with the same SSN number. To this day, you can't call up any agency, you can't go to your website and say, is this Roger's Social Security number? You can't validate them. You can't repudiate them. And yet, they have the de facto ID number card for our country. Why is this a problem? What happens when somebody's ID gets stolen? Who pays the bill for the cleanup? Is it the thief? Is it the companies who benefited? Or is it the poor sucker, I mean the poor consumer, who spends thousands of hours and thousands of dollars trying to get their life back? We as society pay for a compromise we made in 1936. In 1989, Bush II passed an updated law which required all kids at birth to get SSN numbers. to prevent the theft of healthcare and other social services by illegal immigrants. What do the parents do? Nothing. You get a baby, you're happy, you take all the photos, put them on your webpage, Facebook and Twitter back then, and you got your birth certificate, you got your social security number. Guess what happened 16 years later? All those kids applying for college. And they discovered lots of those kids had loans in their name. Their IDs have been stolen in 01 through 05. Remember all those late night commercials? Bad credit, repair your credit, $3.99, $5.99. What do those companies do? They discovered we've got this treasure trove of issued but unused social security numbers. The kids. They were selling them to adults for $300, $800. Perfectly legal. Well, not perfectly legal, but socially acceptable. That's how those credit profiles came from. So you have a generation of kids who find out when they apply for college loans, they own a house, they own cars, they're deadbeats on debt. We as society allow that to happen, and we're going to pay for the cleanup costs. Google Street View. This came out a couple of weeks ago. Seen as Google Street View to Lithuania. A week later, the tax authorities went to Street View Google Earth, looked at every neighborhood, and they're starting to hit people with taxes and tax bills for unreported income. My personal favorite story is this woman. They catch her climbing into a hammock in her front yard. Next thing you know, the tax cops are there going, "Your income says this. Your house is worth that. Please help us do the math." By the way, here's the bill. They're not the only one. There's a couple of communities in Long Island, New York, and around the country, and a lot of homeowners associations who are using Google Street View data and Google Earth data to detect whether you are violating zoning codes or homeowner association rules. So one thing you can learn, where do we deal with this? A lot of companies are going through the BYOD, bring your own device, bring your own disaster policies. Last year when IBM got their first female CEO, she went to CIO and said, "We're a large corp, what should be our security policy? Look at it." They came through a document yay big. But my three favorites. Now IBM is a large security company on the planet. They own the companies, they own the patents, they cross-patent rights of every corporation in existence. There isn't a technology or a process that IBM cannot get to. And they literally said, given everything we have, the billions of dollars in revenues, the $1 trillion in assets, our patent portfolio, with all this firepower at our disposal, we cannot protect our privacy when our employees use Facebook, iCloud, or Siri. They banned Dropbox, iCloud and Siri from IBM corporate globally. Personally, I think it's a great policy to adopt. If the biggest, smartest boys and girls on the planet who build a Smarter Planet campaign can't protect their client privacy when their employees use Dropbox, iCloud, or Siri, you might want to take a lesson from them. Because if IBM could build a product, not only would they build it, they'd sell you the product tomorrow. Now, this week has been a fun week for me. How many of you think of Texas as a republic, as a progressive state? The Free Republic of Texas. They've actually passed a law, unanimous, not a single dissenting vote, in Texas legislature, which will require subpoenas and warrants for all email. It is the toughest email privacy law in the nation. And if Rick Perry does nothing, it passes. If he says yes, it passes. Unless he actively says, "I'm vetoing this law," the free-thinking, righteous, liberal Republic of Texas will have an email privacy law at the state level that exceeds any other in the union. Man, Texas is a liberal state. Who knew? And separately, just last week, Maine is passing a law they're discussing right now, which would require warrants for all cell phone GPS tracking. So all of a sudden, we live in a country where Texas and Maine are in the same boat politically. Now we need a drink. Measure to predict the future is to invent it. Alan Kay, Xerox, Spark, invented a mouse, GUI systems, and a whole bunch of technologies. You want to learn how to control the internet? Learn from China. Don't bother trying to figure out how to do it. Steal their playbook. The Economist, on the next slide, has, I'm going to go to it. Yep. The Economist wrote a great story. It's not just a 2-page story, it's like a good 16-page insert where they talk about the rise of internet in China and how it was first fought by the government, then adopted and now owned by the Chinese government. The Chinese internet population is greater than the rest of the world combined. 500 million Chinese people surf the internet daily. That's more than Google and Yahoo and Facebook and LinkedIn and eHarmony and everybody else combined. These are active users, not fake net profiles. What do the Chinese do? Once the government figured out they're not going to fight the internet tide, they start blocking it. They said, okay, new rules. You want to be an internet provider in China? Your servers run in China. They encourage their entrepreneurs to clone American and Western sites. There's no Facebook. There's a Chinese equivalent. There's no Twitter. There's Weibo. There's no Google. There's Biden. There's no eBay. There's Tencent. There's no ICQ and AIM. There's QQ. Why? A, all the servers, central servers live in China. That's required under law. B, every Chinese provider is required to hire censors that they pay for, whose job it is every single day, round the clock, to censor communications in real time at the behest of the party. And yes, you have to use human judgment, and if your censors get it wrong, you get a bullet to the head. Sometimes metaphorically, sometimes realistically. Last year, Chinese had a small problem in the Xinhua province, a state bigger than some of our states. And the Chinese government disabled all external access to the internet. Phones worked, cell phones worked, email worked, all the Chinese media worked. You cannot get a single foreign site, and most people did not notice it because all their communications is being done in internal systems. Oh, and by the way, who helped them build the Great Firewall of China? Cisco and Blue Coat. Jacob Altman, very great at Tor, has a great image I stole from him. You know, as the Tor project founders, he goes around the world helping civil rights activists, freedom fighters communicate with the world. He's helped communicate the Arab Spring and a lot of revolutions worldwide. Here's what they have found. In every single country that they've been in, where there's repression going on at the digital level, one company keeps getting up every single time. China, Blue Coat. Egypt, Blue Coat. Syria, Blue Coat. Australia, Blue Coat. Yes, Australia filters the damn internet, and an American company controls the filters. UK, Blue Coat. You draw a map around the world, if internet's being surveilled and controlled, chances are Blue Coat or Cisco's doing it. Chinese, and there's a great presentation attended from Northrop Grumman. A gentleman had a great line, which I'm going to steal next time. He said, you can sell anything you want to China, once. Russians sold them their heavy lift aircraft in 1963. 1983, Chinese built their own. As you said, Westinghouse will sell China a new nuclear reactor the first time around. Second, third, and fourth will not be Westinghouse products. China took what Cisco built for them, and they went ballistic on it. And now some of the Chinese technology is being sold to Western governments and to our corporations for net filtering practices. So we help fund the great firewalls around the world, and now we're going to be beneficiaries of really great repressive technologies because they got better at it. Mr. Eric Schmidt, last slide. This is what he said a couple of years ago. We know where you are. We know where you've been. We can more or less know what you're thinking about. Once you first came out, and people were going, why? He literally said, if you have something you don't want anyone to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. Apparently, he's never raised children. Apparently, he's never been a child himself. He actually said, and 2 weeks ago, he said this at the Daily Telegraph, and I'm just getting my head wrapped around. He literally says, you have to fight for your privacy or you will lose it. Here's what I want to know. How does the chief privacy eroder-in-chief the man who helped shepherd a company that is the largest erosion of privacy ever, all of a sudden get religion. What the hell happened in his personal life that now he says we have to fight for privacy? Oh, could it be because drones are now commercially available and he doesn't want his neighbors flying drones over his property? Gee, I wonder, did somebody steal his privacy at some point that finally made him wake up? Because he just committed heresy. That's like Pope saying atheists can go to heaven. Oh, that happened too. We live in a strange world. That's my contact info. You're welcome to email me, call me, talk to me privately at the bar, whatever you like. Questions? I thank you for being here. I thank you for